Sandeep Roy to speak more about it. An alumni of Jadhavpur University and FPA Delhi, Mr. Sandeep Roy is currently a senior vice president and head of Central Design and Engineering team of DLF Ltd. Over the last 3 decades, Mr. Sandeep has been instrumental in establishing and managing architectural design, project management, and real estate development companies, along with numerous landmark townships, buildings, and interior projects. So let's welcome Mr. Sandeep Roy.
So I wished I was probably one of the last speakers. The reason is I'm going to stretch the domain of sustainability a little bit with this presentation. I'm looking beyond sustainability over here and with something that has becoming a modernist movement now, and it's hugely pertinent for high-rise buildings. So I call this the triangle of intrigue, and it's just a name that I gave because I have always been intrigued by a relationship of these three things. And frankly, as architects and designers, this is all that we do all the time, to be very frank. What we are doing in our lives is trying to find a relationship between us, the people, the nature, the ecosystem around us, and of course, what we do as professionals, which is our built form. Now, taking that a little forward, this particular triumvirate, what we have already done over the last few decades is we have linked up nature with the built form into something that we call sustainable development model. We have laid down certain rules for us here also. These rules are, fundamentally speaking, that we will minimize borrowing resources from nature to build our building. What we will take from nature, we will try to give as much of it back to nature and use natural resources in natural forms. These fundamental ideas have now been expanded into a bunch of checklists, which we just tick and we say that our building is sustainable. And that is what we have brought down to. And there's nothing wrong. Mind you, I'm not saying this in any kind of a derogatory way. I think it was necessary to give certain structure to what we were doing. And that structure has come in the form of certification, be it LEED, be it RIHA, and multiple of them are available now. And I call it a checkbox design. So you have got these checkboxes to tick. And once you have done it, you are quite sure that your building is not taking too much away from the nature, in fact, probably giving it back something also, and we call it a sustainable architecture. However, there was a little bit missing on this traditional model of things, which is the humans. We were kind of assuming that the humans were gaining a little bit of an indirect advantage because we were not eating up nature, we were not affecting the ecosystem as much as we were doing earlier. So this will only help the humans in a indirect way. However, a new modernist movement has started, which is trying to bring in, and I'm saying has started very loosely. It's almost three and a half decades now since this is going on, and taking the humans into account and trying to bring everything together. And how does it work? We are introducing three more variables into what we should consider as an ideal built form: health, well-being, and therefore the happiness of the people. And once we take both of these things together, that it's a sustainable development model, which is now in a very refined stage with this step ahead, which is still under evolution. And that is what we broadly call biophilic design. But that's a lot of theory out there. Effectively, it is what we are all trying to do here is merging nature and built forms so that people can get close to nature in every point of their existence. Whether you are at home, you are at work, or you are at leisure, you are in a hotel, or you are in a cinema hall. And in many ways, we are trying to get nature as close to you. And the reason is theory says that nature adds happiness, health, and well-being to the people. Theory says so. So let me look back a little bit on the history and the evolution of this theory. Somewhere around 1984, Edward Wilson, who is basically a biologist, had proposed this idea that this theory that humans have an innate relationship with innate bond with all other living systems. And this is what the crux is, and this is very much credited to have started the biophilic design movement. I'm using design in a very broad term. I'm not only just talking of architecture or built forms here, but almost everything that we do and how nature affects it. In other words, Edward Wilson's work and experiments and theories throughout his life, he established that humans and people love nature. We are generally happy when we are among it, and our health and wellness is affected by it. It explains why we like the sound of raindrops or the blossoming flower, the waterfall, the mist, the shaded park, or even at the other end, why we are afraid of shadows or afraid of heights. While Wilson laid the foundation for generic biophilic design ideas, there was a need now to translate those ideas into our built form systems. If I put some potted plants in my balcony, does that make it a biophilic apartment? So a lot of work again went into that side of it. And again, the person who is credited to actually give a little bit of a system and structure to translate the biological biophilia into the world of real estate is Dr. Stephen Kellett from Yale. And he started classifying this biophilic approach and did that into 3 broad categories in his theory and his books, which are available pretty much again in the public domain. One, he said there are direct impact, which is like introducing water or plants accessible to the user directly. Indirect, visual access to greenery or sunlight, or even a smell that can come through your air conditioning system. And symbolic, for example, use of natural material that reminds you of certain nature. Now, this was again the early days of development. Dr. Kellett's classification has subsequently been taken forward, and a lot of exercise has, a lot of theoretical work has gone into this classification. One of the more acceptable lines of thought is something forwarded by an organization called Terrapin Bright Green. They have given a 14-point agenda, again, some kind of a checklist. All this is to give a structure, give a checklist that what are you supposed to do when you are designing a biophilic project. All this are available in the public domain, available in the net. Anyone who is interested can download and go through it. I will not take a lot of time on that. And that is frankly enough of theory and enough of hard talk. I have, over the last few slides, I have tried to establish what is essentially biophilic design and how is it related to sustainability. Let me now get into visuals. We all like pictures. So through some visuals, let me establish the context and why it is important for the high rises. This picture is from Park Royal, Singapore. It's a hotel. It sits in a very, very tight urban situation with barely any land area left to do any kind of a landscaping. So this building picked it up and went at various heights, started creating these gardens. And these are not just merely small shrubs or anything. You can probably look at the images. There are full-grown palm trees out there, full-grown trees out there. In effect, this building has green area which is nearly 50%, which is in fact a little more than 50% of the plot area. So that is where the context comes in. That is where biophilic is helping or is important or pertinent in the high-rise situation, because it is we talk about high-rise invariably in a very, very dense urban context, and that is when we do not have ground. The ground comes under pressure, and that is when we start creating these greens at various levels with the idea that greens actually do good to people. This is just another elevation. This is the front view of the same hotel, and you can see what I meant by that. I actually liked this picture. I was I found this very interesting. This picture is from Dr. Kellard's book. This is the cover image of Dr. Kellard's book. It is a real image from Paris, right? Yeah, from Paris. And this shows at least 2 of his 3 classifications. The building on the left, which is on your face, a green vertical wall, and that is a direct intervention of what we are talking about over here as a biophilic architecture. The right one is a symbolic approach where you have certain floral patterns, you have certain column capitals, which starts giving you that image that there is something to do with the nature. Anytime you search green building or anything on the net, I think this picture is thrown out by Google. I mean, this is one of the favorite pictures, I think, going on. Now, Bosco article Milan is fairly new building. I mean, it was finished in 2014, so not even a decade old. But you can see that it's quite fascinating that there is no real facade of the building is practically visible. And it's almost trees. And I was looking into the data. So they have put in, these are again pretty high building, 80 to 112 meters, 480 large and medium trees, 300 small trees, 11,000 perennial and covering plants, 5,000 shrubs. That's all in there in the building and not at the ground level. And this is where it is taking the whole approach to. If you are sitting in a balcony, you are sitting in a tree-shaded park out there. Does that do good to your health, to your happiness, to your well-being? You tell me. Another of my little favorite building, and I keep on going back to Singapore for these examples. The reason is there in our vicinity, other than Bombay, probably it's a great example of an urban context where land is really, really scarce. And what this building does is it has a very rigid external envelope, which is nearly a square, but inside that it has created this very organic green wall, which is literally it's a tropical rainforest out there, and that climbs up, and the entire inside, when you step inside this atrium inside this building, it's open to sky. You are actually in a tropical rainforest. This is where and how biophilia is coming to the context of sustainable or making high-rise building not only sustainable but also humane. I will come to a closure, some closing concluding remarks. So let me talk about the opportunities and challenges with biophilic high-rises in the Indian context. So obviously what we are trying to do here in terms of opportunities is bringing people back to the center of sustainable high-rises. We were missing that. We were assuming in the current sustainable scenario with LEED and Griha or any other terms, what we were trying to do is we were trying to give the people an indirect benefit that of not destroying the nature, therefore you should be good. We are now stretching the definition of sustainability one step forward and saying, let the people be also there. This is my favorite triangle. I keep on repeating that on every presentation, please don't mind that. But I have been mentioning these points that in a high density, high rise urban development, there's pressure on the ground level. What we are trying to do is replicating Mother Earth at the upper level and at various levels. What we are trying to do is taking sustainability into the health, well-being, and therefore the happiness of the people too. And in a high-rise context, even 100 meters above, you can be in touch with earth, you can smell the wet soil maybe, and that could be quite a fantastic thing to have if you are living in a 12th floor or working in a 30th floor and you still can feel the rain happening outside. That is what the big advantage of this is. In my little effort, or in my some effort to introduce biophilic architecture in India, some of the challenges I have faced, and I will just quickly cover these for everybody's understanding, because we have to probably we have to collectively come and overcome these. Number one is a quantitative assessment of health and wellness benefits due to proximity with nature. The thing is, we keep on talking about these theories that nature or proximity to nature assists your health and your wellness, but can we actually measure it so that it boils down from a developer scenario where I come from? We can actually bring in some kind of a return on investment calculation out there, that this is what we are spending and this is what we are getting. Yes, there is a capital cost out there. If we are trying to create real soil, real gardens at higher level, there are structural loading, there is waterproofing, so there is some capital cost that goes in there. We need to understand these ROIs a little more. Some work is being done over here again in London, for example, at the Shard, a whole 12th floor is they call a living lab. This living laboratory has got these pods which are different different biophilic scenarios. Office users are brought into these pods and made to work out of there for 4 weeks. Then they're sent back into their typical office scenario. Their performance, their mental health is being measured, and these are regularly getting published. You can get a look into this project also. This particular issue also, it's there in the public domain on the net. The second is the regulation. I have also mentioned this during the presentation. The regulations, the guidelines, the standards are still evolving. We are working on that. We had talked about Dr. Kellert's work. We have talked about Terrapin Bright Green's work. And there are right now almost about, Terrapin Bright Green 14-point agenda. There are right now about 70 to 90 agenda in certain research papers which are available. I would also like to point out that just like we take the LEED certification and or many type of, there is Sword of Honor, safety certifications. There are 2 certifications that at least I know of, maybe more, which is, one is called WELL and the other is called FitWell. FitWell is supported by the US government itself, which actually goes back and measures the wellness of the users within an office building. And those are nice criteria, frankly speaking, to have a target that these are what the biophilic design should achieve. Thirdly, there is a perception that it's a high maintenance. I do not necessarily agree to it. I think it's as much expensive as the square footage of garden you are building. Whether the garden is in Mother Earth or the garden is upstairs, it is not necessarily any more expensive in the long run. Yes, the waterproofing might need renewal in 15 years time. That's the little extra which you probably won't do in the ground level. But other than that, it is just a garden. It's just a garden that you're building. So if you are building 50% of your site area at various levels, and you leave 50% of site area to do a garden at the ground level, the maintenance, in my opinion, is going to be only a minuscule difference. And the last thing that, and I have nothing to elaborate much on this, frankly, expertise to design and execute a truly biophilic building today in India is a little bit of a challenge. Internationally, there are lots of consultants, etc. available. I'll close this presentation by saying that yes, sustainability and high rises has been long debated, and we have reached quite satisfactory levels of that. The next challenge is to make high rises more humane, more at one with nature, and the biophilic design movement is taking the sustainability movement to that level. Thank you very much.